Welcome everyone to the webinar today on Microsoft SharePoint. So my name is Christine Hullum and I'm the Events and Membership Coordinator at Connecting Up. Our presenter today is Debbie Ireland, and she will go through a few overview of the features of SharePoint as well as a lot of demonstration on how the product actually works. And SharePoint is available through DonorTech or TechSoup New Zealand from Connecting Up. So with that, I will pass on to Debbie, our presenter, to start.
All right, so welcome everybody. I think, Christine, you have a little poll that we might just ask what people's experiences with SharePoint. So I have an idea as to whether you've never seen it, you use it a lot now, or you're just starting to learn about it. Do you think we could put that up, Christine?
Yep, so 51% have never seen SharePoint at all. 6% use SharePoint today as an end user. 24% have used SharePoint but not much idea what it can do. And 19% can use and configure some parts of SharePoint, so have a bit more experience in the software.
Wonderful. What we're talking about here today, I'm going to first of all do a brief overview explaining some of the terminology and concepts. Very brief and not at all meant to be technical, but just to give you a couple of ideas about versions and so forth, or things that you need to note that you can then take back and ask of your organisation later. Then the rest of the presentation is really going to focus on improving productivity and how SharePoint can help you do that. So what can it do for me? What are some of the features we should look out for? And I have a lot of demonstrations. So you'll see a lot of content, but it'll be enough to give you hopefully a little bit of an idea on what you can do, some of the ideas that might then spur you to think, well, we could be using it for this or the other thing, and to explain a little bit of the capability that SharePoint does have, because it is a big collaboration software. They use it for building teams, communicating or news, bringing everything together. And so we're going to Intranet and Extranet, managing content in a wide spectrum of things. So that can be things like lists of information, documents and files, information that's stored in other systems like your HR systems, and any number of things. And it can also be used for web content management, which just means all the pages on your public-facing websites, you can use SharePoint for that as well. And it's also very much used for search, so for finding information, and that probably is one of the biggest features that saves a lot of users time, is being able to find the information that they need very quickly and easily, and we've got a few of those things. So just to cover off very quickly the different types of users with SharePoint, in theory, and you'll see this in the demonstrations, you could have one SharePoint site that produces everything. It could be the Internet-facing site, so that's anything that's public-facing, that has anonymous access and just means that people can access it by going to, for example, www.sharepoint.com, and you'll get to a SharePoint site. So it's just like any other Internet-facing site, but it's accessible, and it's published corporate content. It's accessible to everything, everyone in the public. The next level from that is looking at it as being an extranet. So you could have a public-facing site, and then you could have it so that people can actually log on to that site and then get access to a different subset of information within the site. So this might be, and by log on, that's when I talk about authenticated users, so it means that they have to use some form of login to be able to get onto the site. It could be, the examples could be things like suppliers or contractors for firms that need people to come on and complete different forms or information or share documents that you might want to share with a group of people, but you want them to have access to your information that you're keeping. So I was talking about Internet, Extranet and Intranet, and got to the fact that the Intranet was linking to other systems and use of internal users. I think the demonstration will cover all this, but we can come back and I can answer any questions at the end. There are different versions of SharePoint, so you'll hear a lot used. Some are free and some are licensed and paid ones. I'm not going to go into the detail, but enough to know that there are versions from 2007, 2010 and 2013, which comes out early next year. There are also enterprise and standard versions which mean that there's different features that are enabled that you can have if you've got enterprise, and again it's all licensing. Those mean that you can have SharePoint installed on your server at your organisation. The other option is that you can have SharePoint online. So this means that you can have a hosted SharePoint site. So if you don't have a lot of technical resource in your organisation, it sometimes is easier for you to have SharePoint hosted by another company or by using Microsoft's version of Office 365. So what you're seeing today in the demonstrations, most of it is out of the box. By out of the box, I mean that we're not using custom development, and that most of it is things that are configured within SharePoint but using out of the box. There are some things that use different versions, and if you've got specific questions, please put them in the window and we can address them after this session. So there is a lot of terminology when it comes to SharePoint, and I don't want to confuse everyone by going into the detail of that, but once you get your head around what some of the things are called and what they mean, it's actually very easy to understand SharePoint.
So think of every site as a bucket, so a bucket of information. We have one entire site. In this particular example, your intranet might be one SharePoint site, and then it has lots of sub-sites underneath it. And you can see that you have finance and IT here, and there might be sub-sites underneath each one of those. Each one of the buckets, you can set certain permissions. So you can say only people from the IT team can see the IT team site and all the content within it, or you can share it amongst everybody and then across the whole organisation. Is that all okay, and is my voice all okay? I just want to double check that now.
Yep, it's all perfect.
Okay, good. Right, so the next slide that I was getting to was just saying how I'm going to do the demonstration for the next wee bit. So 5 demonstrations, and each one of these I'll go into in detail. When I talk about sharing knowledge, I'm talking about collaboration, teamwork, and using SharePoint for that purpose. Control file chaos is all about document management within SharePoint. Display key information is all about how we can easily get users to be able to come in and get to the information that they need quickly and easily. So you end up sometimes with a SharePoint site that's got tons of very valuable information in there, but it's really hard for users to actually get to what they need to get to. So that's all about display. And using familiar tools is about integrating with other Office products. So if you use Word, if you use Outlook, then you want to make it easy by introducing SharePoint to be able to use SharePoint with those other products. And then at the end, we're going to take a look at some of the new features of SharePoint 2013 and the whole big buzz around social and enterprise and some of the cool features within that. Okay, so the first one is all about sharing knowledge. And we're going to look at the different features of SharePoint that are used to improve communication, be able to retain history and provide context. And by that, some of the ways that SharePoint is used is to reduce emails. So instead of having emails that come from lots and lots of different people, using team discussions to try and record that information within a SharePoint site and actually just use email as a notification system. It is also about capturing informal knowledge. So instead of people that leave organisations taking all that knowledge with them, being able to try and hopefully adopt and change your culture so that they start to document some of the knowledge that they have in their heads, so that when there's new people that come on board, they can actually share that knowledge amongst others, and about sharing workspaces. So I'm now going to jump into the first demonstration, and we're going to take a look at, and I'll run you through, first of all, very simply, what some of the navigation and things are within SharePoint. So I'm using a demonstration site for a company called Office Train, and this is their intranet. So you can see up the top right-hand side here that I'm logged in as Debbie. Now the login is based on, because it's an intranet, it's going to be based on your own systems within your company. So you could log in as Debbie to your actual computer, and then when you go to the SharePoint site, it'll recognize you as being Debbie. And your permissions are all set up as to what you're allowed to see and not see once you hit the SharePoint site. I can also see that there's navigation all along the top here for where I can get to on the site, and down the left-hand side here. And you'll see me go through to a lot of these different things. So on this particular intranet site, some of the areas that we can use for collaboration are things like a calendar. So we can have a calendar for team events, deadlines, things that are relevant to the whole entire company or to the individual team on the site that we're actually looking at. We can have announcements, so people can actually go ahead and they can add their own announcement onto a site. And this is quite good because there's dates on here like expiry dates, and it means that the announcement will disappear after the date of that's been set. So it means that it doesn't have to be managed. Anyone can go ahead and add a new announcement in here and then set the expiry date down here, and it'll disappear off the front page after that date. We can also set up approval on these sorts of things so that you could have one person, if it's more of a corporate type intranet, where you want people to be able to go in and enter the announcement, but you want to be able to control who actually gets to put them up there or whether the content is okay. So you can have an approver go through, look at the drafts, and then they only become visible to the entire organisation once that announcement's been approved. We can have also within a SharePoint site, and we're going to look at all different areas here, lots and lots of different information within the SharePoint site that we might want to get to. So we could have, for example, a list of vehicle bookings. We could have, and probably worth introducing just one little concept is within SharePoint everything's considered as a list or a library. So a list, if you think about a list as simply like a spreadsheet where you have lots and lots of rows of information within the spreadsheet, and then you have lots of columns within your spreadsheet that actually show you the information or tell you about those rows of data. So a list is pretty much just a web-based spreadsheet if you think about it in those terms. And you can store all sorts of information within your lists, within your SharePoint sites. The good thing about lists is that with a spreadsheet, one person may have it locked, for example, and therefore it can't be opened by other people. Or one person might have gone on holiday and checked it out, and then no one else can get to the information. So with this, it becomes an online form in itself. People can add to it, they can edit the item, they can change it, and they're all individually managed within that SharePoint site. So one big improvement of team collaboration can be just sharing that information within a SharePoint list that everyone can access, so it's accessible anywhere and everywhere. It's not locked on someone's laptop. One of the other collaboration features is using wikis. So you can have within organisations, instead of having lots and lots of documents or spreadsheets that you use for your policies and processes, you could have them all available in wiki pages. And these wiki pages are quite easily updatable either by, depending on the culture of your organisation, but they can be updated by people that use the wikis. And again, it could be informal information like how do I have my coffee and how does the rest of the team have them, what are our office procedures, and so forth. Or they could be very formal ones that are only updated by certain people. But a wiki is very much like Wikipedia, where you can have links going off to all sorts of different information, opening up different documents, and so forth. So the Knowledge Wiki is just one idea of storing informal knowledge. I've seen some great ideas of when they've used it for induction processes, so that there's been all sorts of links on the home page, and then you can have all your induction processes all loaded, and people just need to click through from one to the other. This one here is actually just showing how you can also put different information on a page. So this is showing a Visio diagram, for example, on this side, and how you could click on the Visio diagram and see a related Visio diagram on the other side, so people don't have to have Visio on their actual machines, but they can see related information just on the web pages themselves. The other thing that is useful to show from a collaboration point of view is actually looking at having sub-sites. So in this particular instance, I'm just going to show you how you can have one particular workspace for one particular project. So you could use it, and it is used a lot actually for project management. There's entire courses on SharePoint for project management. But this here shows that now I'm on the Nelson branch project. If I was to navigate up, you can see that there's my top level site, and this is the sub-site that I'm on. But when I'm on this, I can have things like lists that tell me about change readiness, tell me about project initiation or a scope statement, and everything about that particular project all stored within my SharePoint site. I can have documents, have risks logged in here, and everything, again, about this project so that only the permission for only the people on this project would have access to this site. And it can be used for all sorts of different things. So that's just an example of a project site that would be used for different things. This is an example of a team discussion. So team discussions are lists in effect, but they're ways of being able to communicate with a team without using email. Now you're going to see in a later demonstration how I can synchronize all of this information with Outlook. But the idea being that quite often we'll get an email that's been sent out to 5 different people, and then someone will respond to one part of the thread, someone will respond to another, but it all gets lost in email. So this way you've got a record of that entire discussion, and you can go ahead and you can reply to the discussion within the SharePoint site, and it all stays there. So if I've gone on leave and I come back, I can have a look at the information that's happened in my absence. I actually use this. We organise conferences, and we use team discussions all the time to record the decisions that are made, and to be able to have people respond to them because they're all on different time zones, so they can just come in and then there's a record of them. So instead of using all the, you can of course use tasks as well, but just as a different way of using that information, it's quite a nice way of looking at a record of all the information that's happened. You can also have task lists, so you can have, and again I'll show you this synchronized with Outlook so that you can use it in 2 places, but people can go ahead and they can add new tasks. You can have it so that it emails the person when a task has been assigned to them, and then you can see all the different tasks that have been assigned to a particular person. So that was just to show you just a couple of the ideas around sharing knowledge and the types of the fact that you can have sites and sub-sites. So I'm just going to jump back into the presentation to get to the next demonstration. And this one is about controlling file chaos. So I'm just going to double check in, Christine, that we're still all good here.
Yep, it is.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is about document management and being able to use SharePoint for reducing time and reducing duplication. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with using shared drives in most organisations. I think everyone that I've seen, and I ask how structured these shared drives are, everyone laughs at me and says they're a huge big mess, or they've got masses of duplication, or they've got old data in there, and it's just one of the biggest bugbears, I think, of every organisation. The other thing is that they reside on a server that could be stuck in one particular part of the organisation, and it's hard for people to access the information if they're working remotely, or they're away, or they work in different parts of the organisation in different cities and so forth. So the idea around document management is about that sharing of the documents, but then the other part of it is all about metadata. And we're going to look at this, and hopefully I'm going to explain it in high enough detail that you get the gist of it, but without getting too detailed on the whole setup of it. One thing I will be talking about is metadata, and just to simplify what metadata is, if you think about a Word document, and if you opened up a Word document and you looked at the properties, you'd find things like author, date that it was created, and things that are stored by the system. Same with if you went to Windows Explorer, you'd see that information. When you put things into SharePoint, you actually have the ability to add a lot more metadata, and that's the value of the information that's being stored about the document itself. So let's take a look at that, and hopefully that'll make more sense. Okay, so what I've done now is I've gone down from this top level site into the team site for sales and marketing. I've just got it open on a different tab here. And you can see we're in the sales and marketing, so this would be only the sales and marketing team that would have access to this. On this, we've got our own announcements and our own discussions and our own calendar and lots of collaboration type tools here. But what we're looking at for this particular demonstration are document libraries. So you can see here I've got a management document library. You could think about a document library like a folder within your shared drive, and you can lock down the permissions of those libraries, or you can add specific metadata against any one of those libraries. So I'm just going to click on this one here. It's just taking a little while to come up. You can also have folders within document libraries, although we don't really recommend that unless they're used for permissions, simply because you've got the opportunity to use metadata as opposed to having folders to sort them. So in this particular one, the type of metadata that I'm talking about is we've got a sales rep, and I can go ahead and I can filter. So I can say, okay, just show me all the information, all the documents by Barbara Boyce or by June Edwards. And I can see also information from the metadata fields without having to open up every single one of these documents. So you'll see in a lot of the demonstrations I'm about to do all sorts of different metadata fields here. The other thing is that I can put version control on libraries, so I can actually go ahead and see the version history if I have turned on version control on a library. So there is that capability there. I won't go into huge detail, and it doesn't need to be turned on every library because some libraries require very strict access and versioning and checking in and out and all the rest of it, and other ones might not need so much. So I can actually go back, I can restore an earlier version, I can delete an earlier version, I can choose how many versions to store, and so on and so on. So this is an example of a library with version control on it. The other library I've got here is a sales document library, and I'll just show you this is a different type. So you can see that I have different types of information or metadata fields along the top here. And I'll just show you some of the features within those document libraries. So if I go to Documents, I've got a couple of tabs up the top here. One allows me to change the settings on that library, and the other one allows me to do different things. So I can upload a document, and I can upload it from wherever. I can upload multiple documents at the same time. And that means if I've created the document inside of PowerPoint or Word or Excel and I've stored it locally, or it sits on my shared drive, I can upload it directly into this library. Or I can go ahead and I can create the document directly from within SharePoint. Now this is a really good best practice, I guess, to get into if you can do it, because of the fact that you're going to be asking people to actually create the type of document and whatever they need to do from the library that they want it to be stored into. So they don't actually have to think about it later on about where they want to store that document. They actually begin by saying, give me a new presentation. Now these here are actually what they call content types, and I can set up all these different content types within my library. So I can say I want a new presentation, and when someone clicks on new presentation, it's going to open up my company presentation template with all my branding on it. I go ahead, create my document, and then I save it. It's also going to ask me for different types of metadata based on the type of document that I've opened. So while I'm in here, I'm just going to show you some of what that looks like within Word, and then I'm going to demonstrate another feature called co-authoring. So what I've done is I've opened up the widgets proposal Word training, and I've got that open on my screen here. Hopefully you'll see that. And you can see here, I'm just going to tell Amy, because Amy's going to come on and co-author this document with me, hopefully. And you can see I'm actually using link here for those who are familiar with link. And it means that I can see the presence of whoever's available. It's a communication tool like Skype, but it's great. I can share screens, I can do all sorts of things. It's another Microsoft one. So what I've got is I've got this document open from within my SharePoint site, and it's telling me down the bottom here, I've actually got Liz is actually online as well, and she's editing this document as well, and I can tell which parts are being edited by what's been highlighted. And I can go ahead and edit a different part of the document at the same time. So you can see I'm not too sure, I'm hoping this is all coming up clearly enough, but I could start editing this part of the document at the same time as Liz, who's in Auckland, and Amy, who's in Rotorua, are editing the same document. So if I give you a business example of this, an example might be an annual report or a really important RFP or a contract document that you have multiple people who need to be editing the document. They don't necessarily have to be in different locations. I've seen this used where they're all in the same office, but you want to be editing something and doing things with it at the same time. So the good thing is that it does lock the document. You can do this with PowerPoint as well, so it does lock the document when it's being used. And it uploads it back to the server. So all my changes that I'm making within my Word document are going to be reflected back on the server. I'm hoping that Amy's going to come online here. The other thing is that I'm actually going to go ahead within my Word one and show the document panel because I just want to demonstrate this while we're in this one. If you remember when we were in the SharePoint site, and if I just go back to the sales document library, it had different types of metadata here, right? If I go to the Word document, and it's just opening it up for me and hopefully not going to crash on me, then it'll show me those fields along the top here. I'm just going to jump out of that, seeing that seems to be freezing on me right at the moment. We'll come back to that in just a moment while that's refreshing itself. Okay, it looks like it's done it now. Okay, so what you see up the top here is called the Document Information Panel, and that's available in, by the way, Office 2007 and 2010. And it means that any information that's updated in here, so if I was to change the sales rep and save this back up to the site, it'll actually save it within the SharePoint site. I can also put things like quick parts within my document on here that update the fields on here. It just means that when people are working within Word, they're updating the information here rather than having to go back to SharePoint and update it there, and then when I save it back, it's going to tell me that. So you can see down the bottom now I've got 3 people editing this document. And I should be able to see it here we go, we've got something, updates are available, and I can click to see the updates that someone's made here, and it'll probably show me where someone else is locking the document at another one. So I do have to save it because it's got a conflict. And you can see that that information's been added. Hopefully that's enough to show you that you can have multiple people editing a document at the same time. The other thing when I'm within Word is I can actually save and send, and I can save to SharePoint. So you can see that I've got this document library all here, and you can actually load all the places. So it does make it easy for people if they have created a document and they haven't started inside of SharePoint, I can have my save to SharePoint, and it's all available to me there. Okay. So the other thing I want to show just while we're on the libraries is this concept of having content types. What it actually means is I can have different information, and if I go into here, I could either open up this whole document inside of PowerPoint to edit it, the same way as I was with that Word document, or I can just edit the properties. So the properties are those metadata fields that I've stored against the document. So you can see here I've got the content type of presentations, and it's asking me for the presenter, for the sales rep, for all that sort of thing, the client and so forth. If I was to change that to proposal, then it presents me with a different set of metadata. So it says proposal date, proposal expiry, because it's a different type of document, I need to put in different types of information. So the reason you do that is because then when you're looking for particular information, say presentations or proposals, you're storing different information in there. So it means that I don't have to see, if I look at a different view, which is just a slice and dice of all the presentations, then I can see the client, I can see the presenter, and the information that's relevant without having to open up all of those documents. And again, if I was to look at a different type of view, so a view is just a different view on the information that's within that library, then I get proposal expiry, review status, proposal date. So the information being presented to me is a lot easier than storing information within folders and subfolders and so forth within a SharePoint site. Within a shared file shares. Okay, so I think that covers off that one, and I'm going to move relatively fast because we're going to run out of time. So the next demonstration is about displaying information. So for this, we're looking at using what they call web parts, and I'll just show you very briefly what a web part is. It's basically just a little snippet of information that's on a page. And it's also the concept of using workbenches or different pages within your SharePoint sites to display different information. So this could be also classed as dashboards. And with the key idea here of being fewer clicks and an easy way for anyone who's using the SharePoint site to get to the information that they need. So my demonstration for this is actually going to start off with the sales page, but I'm going to look at a couple of different dashboards that I've got here. So remember, I'm on the sales and marketing team site, and I'm going to go ahead and go to, first of all, a dashboard view. Now this dashboard's for the sales and marketing team. I could have a dashboard at the top level of my intranet, I could have one on the training team side, I could have one on the HR site, whatever. It's just, the concept here is to show you that you can have information that pulls from lots of different sources. So this here is pulling from an Excel workbook, and I can change the view so that it gives me a different view. And again, this is a great example actually of the fact that I could have a really complex Excel workbook stored on my SharePoint site that only 2 or 3 people get to author the information, that get to change and update the data within it. But I can share that information with everyone else on my team, and they just get a read-only view and a nice view of whatever graph or whatever information I want to present to them, and I can change it and I can let them see certain parts of the spreadsheet, but I can lock the rest of it down. I can also have graphs on my page. I can add other little pieces of information like team discussions and charts and so forth. So just being the idea that you can have lots of different information showed on the one page. Another good example of a dashboard is, and again I'm using a Visio diagram here, so this Visio diagram actually pulls data from a projects list. And if you look at it, if I just drill in on this a little bit here, you can see that there's a legend here, and it shows me what projects are completed and on track. And I can actually have my project managers update a list in the background of the projects, and they just say, you know, what percentage complete they are and so forth. And then this Visio diagram shows me a pretty picture of exactly what's happening in a snapshot. So if I was the project or the team leader, I'd actually just want to see this detail. And then what we've done is we've connected the data from the Visio diagram to other bits of information on the same site. So in this case, I clicked on the Nelson Office project, and it's showing me the related documents and the related tasks. So these are all just showing connected pieces of information and displaying it in a particular way on your SharePoint site. The other example of displaying information is I've got on the top level here, we've actually got, this is an example of using what they call info pass forms. But if we look at one of these are a way of people, say, coming onto the site, and you might have HR systems that take care of this, so it's just really an example to show you a different thing that you can do. You can have people come on and create an expense claim, for example, and add all the different things and have different lookups, and it'll calculate, and then it'll become a library of all the expense claims, and they could be have information that tells you whether the expense claim was related to Christchurch, Auckland, Wellington, and so forth. And then you can actually build a report or a dashboard that looks at that information within a list. So in this case, the dashboard actually comes in and we look at the expense dashboard here. And it displays a nice visual display of how things are doing. So you can see at the top here the total expenditure is doing okay. The Christchurch office has got a big X because it's not doing so well, and the Wellington office is doing just fine because it's got, and this is actually just pulling data from that same library. So it's saying add up all the expense claims that have been logged against Christchurch office and then just show me an icon that tells me whether it's good, bad or indifferent. So again, just an example, and there's just a drill down of those ones that are all related to that particular one. So an example of a dashboard concept. One of the other ones, I'm going to drill down. So if you look at the team sites we've got here, there's one called Human Resources. So I'm going to jump into the Human Resources site. And you can see here that if it was a Human Resources team site, they'd have different information. They might have things like a key contact list. And it's actually quite good that you can click on one of these and it'll open up an email for you if you were using this as a contact list. I've got things like frequently asked questions here, so I can see, and this actually can pull from a wiki page. How do I do this, that, and the other thing? But there's a couple of dashboards that we've got on here as well. So one of them is an organisation overview. And again, just really to give you an idea on the types of information you can store within your SharePoint site and make it easy for your team to be able to see all sorts of information about what you do. Okay, so in this particular instance, we've got the examples using Office Train, and it's saying Office Train's got its headquarters here and it's got other offices here, but we want to know a little bit more about them. So I can click on one of the other ones and it's going to show me a photo of that particular office and give me different information and different descriptions. So just again, another way of looking at information and having it interact with different pieces on your site. The other one here is showing an example of where everyone might be located, and I've got a couple of examples of this I haven't got time for today, but one of them might be, this one here is showing pictures of maps of Australia and New Zealand, and we can say, okay, show me everyone in the who's from the HR team, and you click on it and it's going to highlight on the side here where everyone in the HR team are located. Probably a better example of this is having a floor plan. So if you've got a floor plan of an office and you've got lots of people in it, you could show where people were and have it highlighted and so forth. So another example of a dashboard. Right, so moving right along, I'm going to jump into the next part, which is using familiar tools. So I think I said in the beginning that the idea behind familiar tools is to make sure that you're not introducing something brand new without people understanding how they can use it with some of the existing things they do. Just about everyone I know uses Outlook quite frequently during the day, and if they do that, you want to encourage them to use their SharePoint site and everything they can do with it within Outlook as well, so that it's easy, so it becomes part of their daily practice rather than something brand new. So we did take a look already at the document information panel, which I've got up the side here. That was the bit within Word, so I'm not going to actually concentrate too much on that. I'm just going to show you some of the things that you can integrate with Outlook. So we'll start first of all looking at the sales and marketing team site, and I'm just going to show you how you can actually connect things and then how they look within Outlook. So if you've got a contact list, so in this particular example, the sales and marketing team decided they needed to have their own contact list that they could share with their whole sales and marketing team. Now this could be at an organisation level. I'm just demonstrating it as a sales and marketing level. Then I can actually go into this list and I can choose to connect it to Outlook, and it's going to ask if I can allow it. And then it brings all that information that was in my SharePoint site, I'm now inside of Outlook, into my Outlook site. So I can actually open this up, I could edit the information, save it, and whatever I do within my Outlook will then be reflected within my SharePoint site here. So it means that multiple people could be updating, same the other way. So if I wanted to update and say I wanted to edit the item within SharePoint, I could update it there and then know that it synchronizes with my Outlook here. So that's contacts. So it means that I can have all my own personal contacts, but I can also have the ones from the sales and marketing team site, for example, and then I've got other ones for intranet contacts and so on and so on. I can also do the same with calendars. So I can go to, and I'm not going to run through the whole process because it wouldn't be that interesting, but if you can imagine that the same way I did the Connect to Outlook, I can do with a calendar on any of my sites, and I can do with task lists, and I can do with team discussions. So again, it's just the same as going calendar and Connect to Outlook, but I've done that with a few of them. So within Outlook, I'll just show you what they look like. From the calendar perspective, what it means is that I can actually bring two calendars up. So this one here would be my personal calendar, which I can untick, and this one here is my training team calendar. So if I was to sync the sales team, it would also give me all of that information as well. Now this works really, really well. What works well for us as a company, because we do SharePoint training, I can tell where every person on my team is and at what organisation, if they're doing on-site training, if they're doing public courses, because it's all on my team calendar. And then on my personal calendar, I see everything that I need to know about me particularly. And I can also overlay them and so forth. So I can have multiple calendars showing at the same time if I need to, and so forth and so forth. So that's the calendar. The contacts I showed you. Tasks. I can also show tasks. So I can have a task list that shows everything to do with me personally that I might have flagged that might be on different lists. But I can also synchronize task lists. So this one here is synchronized from that task list on the sales and marketing team site. And it means I can look at who they've been assigned to and all that different information there. But I can also see tasks from other lists. So if I've got lots of task lists within my SharePoint sites, I can see them all there. And then I can see everything joined together as well. So again, it's just an easy way for me to see the SharePoint information within my Outlook application. The other thing I can do is I can look at SharePoint lists. So I can come down here and I can see team discussions. Oh, sorry, I was going to show this one. So if you remember, I showed you the team discussion. I can actually reply to discussions, and it just looks exactly like an email. So rather than having to open up SharePoint, I can actually just come directly in, and there you go, reply to a discussion right there. So the team discussions way becomes a really easy way of keeping control, and you can see I've got a few synchronized here because I do use the team discussions on different projects and so forth. So that's showing the familiar tools bit, and given that I've got 5 minutes left, I'm going to keep going, and then hopefully maybe have time for a couple of questions. The next bit I want to demonstrate is actually the use of social features, and this is all very new and very exciting to SharePoint 2013. So it's actually new. Some of it's brand new in SharePoint 2013. Some of it is available in 2010. You'll see that it's all about connecting to people, about looking at information and having people collaborate and contribute to discussions and conversations personally. So, and then all about building communities. It's easier to demonstrate this, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So hold on just 1 second. Again, if you're wanting to know what is available in the earlier versions, it's probably easier to email me directly on that. But a lot of the social things have been completely improved with the SharePoint 2013 version. So I'm going to show you my sites, and my sites are available in earlier versions. It's just that they're much improved in 2013. So the site I'm showing now is actually a public site, and this is where I get to say, hey, you can come in and have a look at this whenever you want to, and you can actually get to experience some of SharePoint for free by doing exactly what I'm going to show you here. So if we go back to the beginning of my presentation where I talked about the fact that you can have an Intranet site, if you just go to www.sharethepoint.com, it's an Intranet-facing site. It has public access and it's all anonymous. It doesn't work too well on iPads at the moment. I thought I'd just throw that in there. Sorry, we're working on that one. then what you can do, I'm signed in already, it'll have a sign in button up the top, and actually my advice here would be to read the join us first so you get all the instructions, but I can sign in. And with this, that then turns it from being an intranet to being an extranet. And it actually allows you to sign into this particular site using Facebook or Gmail, so it just asks for an authentication method so that you can do it and it's nice and simple. And once you've signed in, you can do different things on the site. The first thing I want to demonstrate is it allows you to create a My Site. So I can go Debbie Ireland and About Me, and it goes ahead and creates your very own SharePoint site. So this is SharePoint unbranded, and if you want to go ahead and do this yourself, it's a good example of being able to experience SharePoint firsthand. But I'm trying to demonstrate actually some of the social features, so I'll quickly do that. So on my personal site, this is my personal space. I can actually set a quota and I can upload my personal documents to here rather than having an age drive or whatever you have in your organisation. I can have a profile, so everyone has a profile that they can update and they can share certain information. Sorry, it's just going to ask me to log in here because I've been on and off the site. Just give me one moment here. I'll just go back to this actually and just going to re-prompt me quickly. While it's doing that, you can edit your profile, you can choose what information you want to store. So I've chosen these particular interests here. I have different activities and you can see what I've been up to. People can follow me, so I can have different people follow if I go to my news feed. So the news feed is a brand new feature, and it's very much like Facebook. Well, you can see I'm logging in using Facebook, but very much like Facebook, except it's internal to your organisation. In the case of this, if you were to follow, you can follow me on the site. If you were to create your own one, obviously this is public information. But if you turn this into your organisation, it would be colleagues following colleagues. It would be all about the types of interests and skills and so forth that you wanted to share, so that if you want to find someone in your organisation who is really good at team building, they could list that. But I can look at the people that I'm following, and it shows me all the people I'm following. I actually just recently recreated my profile, so you can see all these different people and go ahead and follow them and see who's following you. I can see different updates that people have put. So if I go to the Everyone tag, I can see what people have been saying and choose to follow people there. So I can see there's Sam, the SharePoint man, and the fact that he's written a blog post here. Amy's written fly. I can like things. I can also choose to follow them up. And if I do a follow-up, it's going to actually set a task on my site that I have to go back and follow up. I can follow documents. So that means that, and look at this more in a broader organisation context rather than in the social context I've got here. But if you're somewhere within your SharePoint site and you've seen a really good document, you might want to follow it and then have access to it all here so that you know that you can come back and get to it really easily, and you can be updated if that document is updated. So that's all your documents that you can follow. And you can also follow SharePoint sites, so that helps you if you want to be able to look at different sites and be able to get to them nice and easily. So your My Site is, all about you and all about the information that you need to store, but also all about the news feeds and so forth of the people that you follow, and putting it into a business context and being able to see information that people are posting about different things. So that's one part of the social. The next part is the community side. So you can have a community site, and it's probably well worthwhile just going and taking a look at this. So you can see we've set up a whole lot of tiles, and you can see discussions that are related to those particular topics that we've set up. You can have contributors, you can have members, and you can browse all this yourself, so I'll let you do that. But you can have see what people are asking questions about. So these are all about SharePoint things. So people are saying, does anyone know about this? And someone's put a response in there, and it's really building that whole community thing. I have heard within organisations that you're really cutting down on things like help desk time if you start to build these kind of community discussions. So that's in community, by the way. And I can also go ahead, view members, view all the discussions. You can actually gain points, and you can come back and have a look at this, but that whole idea is about having top contributors and people that, because they're, providing content. And I actually do think that this is going to take off within organisations too. So you can set the points up, so you can say, I want to create a new post or reply and do all these things here. So just to give you an idea. Now, I know I'm right on time as far as I've used up all my time. So, Christine, did you want me to wrap it up?
I might put 10 more minutes just to answer questions, especially because we did have a bit of time when we were struggling with the audio. There are just a few quick questions here. Do you have any idea when SharePoint 2013 will be released?
I have heard that it's early next year, so there is the preview version out, which is what you've seen that shares the point site in, and as I said, by all means go ahead and create a My Site and you can do all the things and trial it all out. There's also downloadable Office 365 sites available, but the RTM or the actual version release will be early next year, I believe.
And Bradley was also asking how much...
No dates that have been published.
Yeah. How much of what we have seen that you've demonstrated can a small IT department implement? At what point do they have to get a SharePoint expert in?
Great question. Okay, so a lot of what you've seen is using out-of-the-box stuff. It isn't using massive development or anything like that. The big thing I would say is it's up to, depends on your IT team as to how much they can train themselves up. There's some wonderful online things, or if you can just get some power user training to start with, and that's a lot of that. There's a lot with SharePoint you can do that's really, really simple, and I'd really encourage using some of the out-of-the-box functionality and getting the most out of that first before you look at taking it too complex. Seriously, if anyone wants to send me an email and ask me specifically about things that I've demonstrated, I can give you that probably on a more detailed.
A question.
Okay?
Yeah. A question from Shelley. Can you use Gmail for integration rather than Outlook?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I would have to take that offline, and I'm thinking that Microsoft, they like to do the same thing.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah.
We will get that answered offline. Karen is asking, what are the benefits of adding NewsGator to SharePoint to improve communications?
Very good question. NewsGator has some awesome social stuff. So some of the stuff I showed you in 2013, if you've got NewsGator, you can do a lot of that and more. So it's all the social stuff. It's all the feedback loop, really. So instead of just SharePoint where you post things for people to read, it's all about people giving feedback and creating those conversations and those communities. That's where the value of social comes in, and NewsGator has some great features for that. It is a third-party product, so it's outside of SharePoint.
A question on integration. Does the CRM integrate with SharePoint?
It does, and another good way to look at that is, do you start with CRM and then do you have the documents that you're loading from within CRM reside in a SharePoint site? And the answer is yes, you can do that, and I would recommend it, but it's actually figuring out how your organisation best works and how you can make that as seamless as possible to the people that are using it.
What about Access? Does Microsoft Access integrate with SharePoint?
It does, sort of. It does. There is part of the enterprise license of 2010 is there is some capability there. It is a little bit limited. Just to take a look at exactly what you're wanting to do.
What about the version of SharePoint that you're demonstrating? Is it a foundation or standard version?
Okay, I was using, for the SharePoint, the Office Train Intranet, I was using SharePoint 2010, and it did have some of the enterprise features deployed. You'll find that there are big differences if you're using Office 365 or SharePoint Online. You actually get a lot of those enterprise features depending on the version that you've got. So take a look. There's some good comparison stuff about the online stuff if you're looking at online.
Scott is asking if it is possible to create links either to the web or network or another section of SharePoint in a document library.
Absolutely, it is. I won't go through the how, but absolutely it is. The linking here, there and everywhere in the navigation, very critical and important part of SharePoint, and yeah, you can link off to anywhere.
Which licenses do we need to buy to use both intranet and internet sites for anonymous access?
Okay, if you're using Office 365, take a look at that first, because if you're looking, they do have a public-facing site that you can use, and they do have different models. If you're looking enterprise-wide with large organisation, then you do need the internet-facing licenses, which I think will be a little bit hefty, and again, I don't know what the deal is for not-for-profits. And I do believe that's changing in 2013, so if you haven't done it yet and you're looking at 2013, I do believe there may be some changes in the internet-facing licenses for that.
How did you manage the implementation and change management when moving to a new platform like this?
Oh, that is a massive question. That's probably at least 2 webinars on its own. Change management, highly, highly critical, and trying to find ways that people work without that SharePoint's going to benefit is probably one of the key things. So saying, I'm going to implement SharePoint for document management and I'm going to take the stick, not the carrot approach and just make them all use it, never works. Whereas if you've got a little bit of a carrot and you say, hey, you're going to get team collaboration, hey, can you see some of the benefits of this? It's going to reduce your workload, like what are the benefits, what's in it for me type of thing. But getting pilot areas and getting some real good evangelists on your team and making sure that training's done. Training's the biggest thing. People fear what they don't know about, and as soon as they get a good feel for it and they've got some hands-on, they feel a lot more comfortable. So, but yeah, big topic.
Do you have to use Microsoft Internet Explorer, or can you use Chrome or Mozilla with SharePoint and SharePoint Online?
You can use all of that, and there are a couple of limitations. They're getting a lot better with that with every release they bring out. You can use them, and there are limitations, and yeah.
Do you need Exchange Server for the SharePoint Outlook integration?
Depends if you're using Office 365 or it depends on the setup. That would be a hard one to answer.
We are currently looking into Yammer. I get the impression that 2013 SharePoint could do the same tasks. Is that correct?
Interesting question. Microsoft has purchased Yammer, and from what I understand, I'm a positive, although I didn't say this, that in future releases of SharePoint that Yammer will be a lot more tightly integrated. It's a little bit like NewScaler. They do more over and above what SharePoint does out of the box, but it also comes back to that 80-20 rule of what are you trying to achieve, and will the social features in SharePoint 2013 suffice, or do you need something more? So I would definitely play with the social features in 2013 because they're very cool, and yeah, there's a lot to offer there.
Does Xero integrate Xero?
Yes, I know Xero and I use it. I haven't, it's one of the questions I asked of Roger actually, is that I'd love to see some more integration. They are working on something called Practice Point, which they're trying to bring. It's more saying, give me my Xero information and display it within SharePoint. And I didn't cover off the fact that you can do that with a lot of source systems, so you can bring in other external sources as well. Not out of the box and not as simply as we would like at this stage would be my answer.
And the last question, do you use SharePoint Designer? If so, does SharePoint Designer need to be used on the server or can it be used on a workstation?
SharePoint Designer can be used on a workstation, and SharePoint Designer 2010 is a lot nicer than 2007. Yes, we use it for some things. It definitely helps to make the display of some things a lot easier, and connecting things like external data, you'd use it for that, or for workflow, which I didn't even cover workflow, but if you're doing some basic workflows and want to integrate that, then SharePoint Designer is a good tool for that.
So that's basically the last of the questions. So basically that's the last of the questions. Once again, apologies to everyone for the audio issues earlier, but I think we've managed to go through it quite clearly afterwards. So thank you for those who stayed back and persevered. I think as I mentioned before, we did record this webinar, and I will edit the recording to make sure that only the clear parts were included. If you have any questions on the product itself, like the SharePoint and the licensing and how much it costs, etc., please do email them to me, and I will get one of our donor tech or TechSoup New Zealand team to answer them. Other than that, what's that information you have on your slide, Debbie, about the SharePoint conference?
So we hold SharePoint, I didn't put the New Zealand dates up here, sorry, in Auckland. It's the week after the Sydney one, so 16th, 17th. And the SharePoint conference is 2 days of really great material that is for end users, technical users, developers, IT pros, everything. We make sure we've got a good mix, so it's a great way of getting up to speed with SharePoint. It has case studies, all the rest of it, and it's been running for the last 4 years. But we do offer a 40% off discount to, it's usually donor tech or TechSoup. I'd need to get back to you, Christine, and tell you exactly what that is. But for a 2-day event, it's well worthwhile. So there's Sydney, Melbourne, and Auckland.
And is there a particular way for people to register so they can get that 40% off? Like, is there a discount code or something, or maybe you can tell me offline?
Yeah. There is, and it'll be the donor tech for Australia, TechSoup for New Zealand, and TechSoup Asia for Singapore. But when Christine, if I can just send you a quick email on that afterwards, just so that I can confirm. But basically, they just need to go to that site.
Sure. Yeah, if you send me the information, I will send it to all the attendees today as well, so they know. Other than that, well, thank you again, Debbie, for the comprehensive webinar, and thanks everyone for joining. And if there's any questions, please feel free to flick them through to me. Thank you, and have a good day.